I'm Sushila from NTUC Women's Committee. Okay. I think our time when we wanted to get married, one of the chores to reproduce ourselves. Has it got to do with culture? I don't want to be racialistic, but I think our parents instill in us that a woman's role is to have children and replenish ourselves. It still runs in the Indian community, in the Malay community. I'm not being racialistic, but I don't see this problem in my daughter, who got married very early after her university. She migrated to Australia and says that, Ma, I want to do masters, so I'm not going to have a kid. I said, I'm not going to ask you. But she had so many aunties calling her, hey, why are you not having a kid? Why are you not having a kid? And she thanked me for not pursuing the same question. But she decided to have a kid when she finished her masters. And she's here in town. It's a bundle of joy to see my grandson being a young grandmother. Why do young girls today treat it as stress? No, when you go back, you look at your child, you'll be so happy to see that bundle of joy, right? I'm sure Huiwa agrees. Women of our generation felt that having a family means having a children. Career can come anytime. But you can't get pregnant when you're old, correct? Career can come when you're old, but you can't get pregnant and start a family when you're old. And you'll be more stressed because you're so old and you can't run around with these kids. Mind you, I went on 2 months leave to take a break when she delivered her baby in Brisbane. I learned something different. You wanted some statistics on other countries. The difference between Singapore's system and Australia, I learned, the care and share. The hospitals were fantastic. The way they handled the delivery. I was in the delivery suite because I had a son-in-law who was worried to go into the delivery suite. And I tell you, the care and attention was fantastic. You don't hear cesarean. That could be a plus factor that the woman is courageous to go on to a second pregnancy. My daughter had a 3.9 kg child, normal delivery. Why? Imagine from 6 p.m. admitted, the care, the attention by the hospitality staff gives her the encouragement. Next, her job. She's a counselor. Okay? They allow you, she only has got 6 weeks of maternity leave in her organization because it's a private counseling center.
Only 6 weeks?
6 weeks only. But Australian system, you must keep a woman's job for 12 months. So she's on unpaid leave for 12 months. And childcare is worse. Per day you pay $70 per day. So if you talk about system in other country, yes, the pay is higher, car is cheaper, house is cheaper. Yes, it's everything there. When it comes to such systems, childcare is expensive, cost of living is expensive. But why do they still want to have a family? I think it's the complete cycle of it's a norm to have a kid, carry on with life, and then your career comes in. And then I was asking her, hey, now that you're in town, 1 year no pay leave. She had the same aunties asking, hey, you graduate, masters, you want to sit at home. Same aunties, She said, wait, I'll go back to work. Probably she inherits something from us. So I think we mothers should be telling our daughters, career can come. But what about your family? It's in you. Don't treat it as stress. My time, maids were quite cheap, but I had a blessed mom to help. But it was the same stress that we went through, but we took it as part of our life cycle. But in her case, when I asked her, by next year, April, when you do not have childcare, waiting list, how? I'll go on next year, no pay leave. Of course, the affordability has to be there. But I guess Singapore system, if we can think about employers allowing the job to be there, it gives a little leeway for this young woman to consider, I can still go back to my comfort zone. That was my job place. And to allow employers to think along that line, government should come in, promote such companies that want to keep the job for this career-minded woman who want to go back to society to work and still have it. I tell you, the moment they have the first kid, they will not hesitate to have another. Thank you.
Well, these are all good ideas on what we can legislate or encourage companies to do. But if you recall in the discussion when we were saying how much we should extend the maternity leave by, paid maternity leave by, one of the concerns that women's groups themselves had was whether or not if we extended maternity leave for a very long time, then companies may themselves be reluctant to employ women, and then that may backfire as well, because then they may not be as enlightened as Irene and then employ a 30-month pregnant lady, or they may be reluctant to employ somebody who they expect, just recently married or whatever it is, and within the next year or two is going to have a kid, and then you have, then you have an employee who has got very, very many months of maternity leave. So I think women themselves, a number of women's groups were concerned also that very, very generous maternity benefits may backfire also, and so there was a balance that was required. So I think these are things we can fine-tune as we go along.
Evening, DPM. Minister. Yes. I'm Leoi Kam from the Singapore Council of Women Organization. Just to give some perspective, I spent my earlier part of my life in Malaysia. The middle part of my life now was half Singapore, half Malaysian, and I perceive the later part of my life would be Singapore, Malaysia, and China for various reasons. But I'm taking this opportunity to frame an observation with this such background. And I realized that when such a dialogue happened in Singapore, this is the first time I'm attending a dialogue, I see this difference. When Minister Lim would come out and say, to stimulate the dialogue and say, what is the best place and how can we make this the best place to raise a family, find a job, and retreat in our civil years. From a Malaysian mind, we all have the best place. Our expectation in Singapore, you ask a lot of Malaysian women, would probably say that if they have a choice, as in their family can move here, everyone would move here. So it really tickles me that questions are posed this way. The second thing is also this. I also felt that when I've been in Singapore, I also realized that there seem to be, coming back to where I come from, Malaysia, is that there's always this tension between the minority population and the government. But in Singapore, it seems to be employees versus employer and government in what they want. For example, when we talk about schooling in Malaysia, if you want to have a third language in our own ethnic language in Chinese, nobody go to the government and ask, we want to have our own schools. Our family and friends that I know of just pull together and say, we must support the Chinese school. All they want to is just among themselves, they started their own education. And it's like a lot of initiative is coming out from the people. And then they look at the government and say, they are the bad guys. So let's go up to the bad guys and just ask for minor things, so that they give off our backs. And the school education system would be like, okay, let's give us the permission to form the Chinese school, but we will fund everything ourselves. So it's like, wow, this is like, coming to Singapore is like, we want better education, we want to have longer hours, we want to the best standard. It's a change of mind frame. Then I look at also in terms of, cut me short, am I going too much, DPM? In terms of, again, I came here and there was a personal incident, but it's quite reflective when I do social work in Singapore. There was a case of a young unmarried, pregnant girl, 16 years old. But the beautiful thing was that the boy, who was exactly 17 years old, was determined to keep the marriage, to get married, have the child, and continue with the family. Of course, on the other hand, one of the partner family was totally against it because they come from different social background. So again, I find that here I'm brought a case of a couple who wants to get married. They can't get married because underage. They need one of the parents to sign off. In the end, they gave birth, not married. They waited until I think they were 17 or 18 before they can get the permission to register. Then the problem comes. They live with the boy's family, who is 10 in a 2-room flat, and with 2. So the question was that I asked around and said, so this type of cases, what do we do with it? And the response was, okay, you go and write to MP. Second thing was, go and see the Family Service Center. Go and see HDB, whether they can give them extended living. Okay, so I did, right? HDB says, no way, underage you cannot apply. Family Service Center say, okay, come in for counseling, but 16 years old, they have a baby, how to spend time on counseling. And so it goes round and round. Same thing with writing to MP. Can't do anything at the CC. This is abnormal. I'm just coming back to the fact about self-help. Then I talked to a few of my friends here. Then they said, can you refer to an NGO? Then I called up a few of my Malaysian friends here. I said, hey, this is happening. So they said, why don't each one of us compromise and says we come up with $2,000, make sure that the kid is raised well. Now the kid is in childcare. Put the 16-year-old, which is now 21 years old, through a secretariat course because didn't go to N-level. And she is now worried because she went to secretariat course, there's no childcare for the family. What I want to point out is that it seems to be a lot initiative and self-help from foreigners who reside here and think that way, then I feel that the local social may always be, let's go to the government for a grant, let's go and see this, let's go and see that. So I'm telling people here, you have a very good thing going here. Maybe on the reflect side is too good. So we expect, and we have a lot of wants rather than needs. That might be just a reverse of taking certain position. We have, to me, this is the best place for all the 3 scenarios. Thank you.
Thanks, Waikam.
My name is Ong Siu Hua. I represent Women's Wing. Very good evening to DPM Teo, Mrs. Lim, and Ms. Fu. I don't have any children. I just want to share some philosophical views of myself. So in my opinion, having children, having that next generation is about posterity. So the man and the woman who are going to have their children, in my opinion, they should have in a mindset, a sense of contentment. That means they feel that life is good, there is hope, and there is something, that they want to see going on and on in the future. So all the stress that we hear about and all that, in my opinion, is because people feel that they have a lot to lose. And that could be 2 things. One is, a very educated, working woman nowadays, indeed, they have a lot to lose. It's finances, it's reputation, it's all the years of training in their profession and all that. But the thing then again is, if they think that life, there is hope, there is something that can, be passed on to the future. For example, I myself, I spend a lot of years training in certain technology areas. I always feel, sad thing that none of my siblings are interested in science, and I like to teach the younger people. So these kind of things. So in my opinion, the stress that comes about is because people don't have that contentment. If they're willing to give up a little bit of things, that stress factor may go. And so at the end of the day, people need to be willing to let go of the feeling that they are losing out. And the other bit, of course, is the taxes implications. Many people talk about, can the government do this? In Sweden or some of the Scandinavian countries, maternity leave could be 6 months, 8 months. But let's all bear in mind that the income taxes there are very high, probably between 40-50%. Yeah.
I thinking of some of the things that you all have brought up, it seems interesting to me. I know people, both men and women, who have gone where one of the spouses, one spouse, has gone overseas. It's quite a difference between one of the spouses and one spouse. Where one spouse has gone overseas to work, and the other spouse, I suppose after thinking it over, has decided to go along and to stop work. Quite frequently it's a woman, but I know also men who have done the same thing and gone with their wives overseas, and they've stopped work. And it seems interesting to me that in such a circumstance, the spouses, the husband and the wife, are able to make a trade-off and are prepared to accept that one of them, sort of takes a different pace or a different career path or career pattern for a number of years, and to sort of follow the other spouse, so to speak. But it would almost seem to be that if you're living in Singapore, you want to have it all because you feel you don't have to make such a choice. Therefore, you both want to continue working, both want to continue to pursue your careers. But actually, if one of them was to be posted overseas, to have an opportunity for promotion or something and go for overseas exposure, there's a good likelihood that the other spouse would say, okay, I stop work for 2 years and go along with you. Or 3 years and go along with you. But somehow or other, when they're in Singapore, both of them want to continue working full-time and, pursue their careers and so forth, and not so ready or not so prepared to do that. And so quite often when they go away for 2 or 3 years, then they start a family. But they don't seem to be prepared to do that when they're in Singapore. I've seen that in a number of cases.
That's true. I mean, strictly from, say, the specific case of a husband being posted overseas, and particularly in a country where you're not allowed to bring in a domestic help, then frequently the wife will just decide to go along and give up her work. Whereas in Singapore, you can do that without having to give up your job. So it is not a trade-off that they feel they need to make, and therefore they will continue pushing the limits until they feel the stress.